Hello and welcome to TK, Coach on the Rocks. Thank you for tuning in. And today we're remembering the legacy of Daniel Kahneman. Sadly, it was announced that he passed on this week. And I just wanted to reflect on my experience with his work. So I remember when I first read his seminal book, Thinking Hard and Thinking Slow, and how enamored I was by System 1 and System 2. I definitely would recommend it to anyone. It's popular science and something that I think it's easy to appreciate and maybe reflect on how we think. But what really struck me is when I researched him back in the day is his work that he got the Nobel Prize in economics for, the behavioral economics and the existence of econs and people. Or essentially, what it is that people don't make rational decisions, or usually don't make rational decisions. And I thought, well, obviously, but he proved it, and there is a lot of great science that he did when he was describing it. But it's interesting that we somehow all intuitively know that it is the case. And I think what's important to consider is the fact that, okay, so this happens, and so what? On one hand, it's a bit of a challenge, but not in a way that, we need people to make rational decisions, is that some people actually exploit it, which is awful. Just wanted to mention that. But the other thing which I believe is very interesting is the fact that do we actually need to make rational decisions all the time? Isn't making irrational decisions the thing that makes us human the most? Because I actually think it is. I actually think that if you're trying to be perfectly rational, if you're trying to really consider everything, really make the best decisions you can, in denying your irrational nature, you're stripping yourself out of a bit of a humanity aspect, right? You're decreasing and diminishing your humanity. I think it's important to consider the fact that sometimes something just feels right. And I don't want to get too spiritual here, sign from the universe, or we just think this is what we need to go for. And I think that's okay. I think that, we should definitely maybe forgive ourselves for sometimes acting irrationally, because that's what makes us human. And also when we see others making decisions as they do, I always find it curious, and especially as a coach, to understand why people do the things they do. Why do people do things a certain way? It's rarely purely rational, obviously, as Kahneman proved it. But it's also interesting that this is the bit that someone's nature, someone's humanity resides in. And I think it's quite important to consider that, and it's quite important to, especially as a coach, to be curious about it. So, if you call yourself a coach or consultant or any person that's helping others, it's just important to have the empathy for this particular aspect, for our inherent irrationality. Hopefully, Kahneman, in whichever place he is now, is looking at us and saying, yeah, that's exactly what I've proven. But will he agree with me? Would he agree with me? Is it something that makes us human? Or maybe, with the incoming age of very rational AIs, it will be a problem. In fact, when you look at it, the AIs are programmed, or dare I say trained, because that's what happens for them, to be a bit irrational. It's interesting that, we have this imagination of back in the day when we're speaking to, like, I don't know, on Star Trek, there was this android Data that wanted to build up his humanity, or, as a person. Very interesting threat, obviously, in the next generations. We thought that an android, an artificial intelligence, would be like over-rational, and let's say, a bit of a cliche. But actually, when we look at real, just language models, but people call them AIs, so I guess they are. It's interesting to consider how how imaginative they can be to the point that they're confabulating, hallucinating, and so on. And that's an official name. So, for instance, in ChatGPT, there's a parameter called temperature that you can tell the wonderful AI how much irrational you want it to be. As humans, we probably don't have a parameter like this, but it's probably a value that we all have. And, what a boring world it would be if we all try to set it down to zero. It's Good Friday. Tomorrow, I don't know if I'll be streaming. Let's be rational and see what happens tomorrow. But if you're not around, have a great and joyous festive period if you're celebrating Easter. But for the rest of us, we hope to see you soon. By the way, how haven't I mentioned the fact that tomorrow at 9 a.m. London time, so GMT, we will be hosting our cafe to talk about Gen Z leadership. So it's humble.associates/cafe. If you feel like, you've had enough sleep and you want to listen to a nice audio chat with your morning coffee, tune in on LinkedIn, humble.associates/cafe, or you can go to our Humble Associates LinkedIn profile and see us there. Until then, all the best to you and hopefully see you soon. Bye-bye.